Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast covering Ipswich Town since 2015. My name is Benjamin Bloom and you are watching or listening to the flagship show available each and every Monday. So for a sometimes entertaining and slightly more frequently informative hour of football conversation, make your Monday a Blue Monday. David Diamond, are we calling this the start of season 7? We've had a friendly. I know we had a show.
Yeah, I guess we sort of can, can't we? Season 7. Who would have thought it? Who would have thought it?
Let me give you some numbers. Season 7, manager number 4, owner number 2, podcast number 448.
Oh,
and right, I've got a little test for you, but because you two are both smart, you've only got 3 seconds to answer. Okay? Yeah. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then you both got to give me your answer when I say 1. Average position of Ipswich Town since we've started running the podcast in the 6 seasons. 3, 2, 1.
11.
Shoot.
24th in the championship.
Not far off. Dave, did you go for 11th in the championship?
Well, I just went for just. I thought you're doing a sort of collective across the whole seasons.
Yeah, I did. You're still miles out.
Oh, right.
Joe was closer, Dave. More honest. Our average position, this is quite apt, is in the pyramid 41.83, which is
just
21st
the relegation
in the
zone.
championship.
Oh, okay.
Just avoiding, just avoiding relegation on.
Not that clever, obviously.
So one thing we do know, just to get things off to a good start, we won't be improving on our average position this season, even if we win League One. But there we go. I'm being all jovial. But there's sad news yesterday. Another Ipswich Town legend of the 1980-81, the greatest team was lost to us yesterday. Dave, we're going to go into some detail on the great Paul Mariner in a sec. But let me just get from both of you, because it's weird, isn't it? Other than your family, the thing you're kind of most attached to, and I don't want to sound twee about this, in your life is often, it's the thing that's tribal and brings people together, is often your football club. And again, other than your family, some of your greatest memories, and I know yours in particular, Dave, are attached to that entity and organisation and these people you admire so much. It's a big deal. So your feelings, we'll talk in detail about the player in a sec, Dave, but your feelings on the news yesterday of the passing of the great Paul Mariner, aged 68.
Yeah, I mean, just really sad. Obviously my formative years just grew up watching, as you know, the great Robson sides. But yeah, shocked, but perhaps not as shocked as I was when I heard that Kevin Beattie had died, because obviously we all know that, Paul Mariner had brain surgery for, I think, brain cancer, 6 months ago, maybe even more, turn of the year, something like that. So obviously we knew he was ill. I mean, you don't read, it wasn't reading too much about, you'd see the odd thing on the forum, that he was obviously in recovery and, obviously recovering still, perhaps bits that come from the family and stuff. But yeah, still a real shock. And, obviously along with Beattie, the second player from that great era to now no longer be with us. I mean, me, I'm obviously older than you guys, so I'm sort of almost coming attuned to it now that, great heroes and perhaps, Ben, over the last year on your, the bits and pieces I've done with you on the sort of great Leeds players that have died. So is that era, and as you could say, yes, it's no age, but he's 68, so you're getting towards 70 and 80, and slowly and surely, sadly, they will all go. I mean, to put it, I suppose, in perspective, I spoke to my father-in-law, and I'll come to that yesterday about what he thought about Paul Mariner, and he did a really good comparison of him and Ray Crawford. And you look at that 61-62 side, and I think there's only Ray Crawford, maybe Andy Nelson, possibly one other that's left. So it's just how, unfortunately, time is that. But no, really, really very, very sad. And to see all the tributes is fantastic. And I've got to say, I mean, I always do say that, but the work that Rich did yesterday again on putting together, piecing all together and putting music to it, and and obviously video to it. The bit that me and you did 5 seasons ago was just spot on again, superb, really.
And it's probably not lost on anyone. Literally 1 month ago, good friend of mine who runs Retro Framers, I don't want it to sound like a clanging plug, sent me shoot cover, 2nd of July, 1983. We just put it up on the office wall. Paul Mariner on the wall there. Literally went up a month ago. Joe, you're a similar age. You and I are a similar age. My first sort of knowing about Paul Mariner was watching the Dennis Waterman narrated the Match of the 70s programs, and he appeared as a talking head on that, and they spoke about him arriving from Plymouth. And Dave and I have got a good story from Fulham a couple of years back where Dave got very starstruck.
I forgot about that
in Paul Mariner. For someone of our age, Joe, and obviously we have people much younger than you or I, and much older than Dave, listen to the show. Talk to me about Paul Mariner and your feelings yesterday.
It's a strange one because he'd left the club before I was even born. Sort of, I was born after, I say, a year after he left the club, but yet I still felt it was almost like choked up when you're reading through all the tributes yesterday of it all, and I don't know, it just makes you realise sort of why the club is what it is and why it's great when you see the sort of breadth of the tributes to him from sort of his on-field side, sort of all the sort of players in the great Liverpool sides and the Tottenham sides of that era. And I say some great words from the Ipswich players. I think sort of Mick Mills saying he probably was the greatest player of that era, of the Bobby Robson side in that era. And everyone you speak to seems to sort of not have a bad word to say about the guy. I've met him briefly a few times, and it always, because it was sort of with sort of after the death of Kevin Beattie and sort of back there when he was coming back to the club to do bits, and he always seemed, whenever anyone tried to praise him, it's like he couldn't accept any praise because it was always put back onto Johnny Walk or Kevin Beattie about how great these guys were, and just seemed so humble and sort of would play down his own talents. But I say I'd sort of implore anyone sort of who hasn't seen him play, sort of probably the easiest game you can watch is, because you can watch highlights of anyone, they're going to look good, but if you watch that 1978 FA Cup final, which is sort of freely available, and it's such a physical game, you sort of see some of the tackles that fly in there, and he just bullies the two centre-halves, David O'Leary and is it Willie Young, and the game is won by the foundation that he lays from us. And like I said, that's probably one of the very few 90 minutes of Paul Mariner and Ipswich shirt you can watch, but I'm sure that wasn't a one-off. It sounded like that's how he played every week. He was just the focal point, and in what was a tough game, you sort of see some of the centre-backs you're coming up against in those years, like Chopper Harris and Norman Hunter, and it is to have somebody that could lead the line and take the kicks, take the beatings, and bring you up the pitch with it. It sort of sounded like it made everyone around him a better player.
Dave, I've got on my personal YouTube channel, I've got a lot of Leeds friends, as you know. I've got messages yesterday. I got like DMs. Oh, I remember that team. He was a great player. And I totally echo what Joe was saying about what he and, the rest of that team represent in terms of the club. Do you remember, Dave, Mariner coming back, had a short stint as Plymouth manager and actually winning at Portman Road? I couldn't tell you what year that was.
2-0. So it must have been around about 10 or 11, 2-0. Because, and again, there's a bit of a funny story attached to that. Because didn't he give his coat away to someone in the crowd? But then they had his reading glasses in, or his glasses in there. So he had to sort put an appeal out, I think, to get his glasses back. Do you know what? I was thinking as I was doing this yesterday, and it really wasn't a case of, oh yeah, okay, all fair enough. Now he's passed. Okay to say that. I think listening back to what we did 5 years ago, I think I underplayed it. I think I underplayed how good he was. Seriously did. So talking to my father-in-law yesterday, there's always a comparison who's the greatest centre forward, and obviously, Ray Crawford and his total of goals will never be surpassed. And he'll never be surpassed at Ipswich. But and my father-in-law was very one of these guys that, you know, if I ever spoke about, you know, Beattie and he would acknowledge, I think that Beattie was still the greatest ever player, but he would say, oh, that John Ellsworthy was a magnificent player. You know, he wasn't far. He could hold his own in today, and one or two of the other players from that team. And he said yesterday, first time, he said that, oh yeah, you know, Crawford, great goal scorer, Jack in the box, you know, Fox in the box, fantastic. He said, not got the class, nowhere near the class player that Mariner was. He had everything. As a centre forward, he had everything. Because he had that just velvety touch, you know, control, physical, as Joe said. You know, he very much did. He bullied those two centre halves in the cup, and I saw him do it up and down country week after week. Did the same thing to, you know, world class centre halves. You know, Hanson, Lawrence, and people like that. He would Emmeline Hughes. You know, he just would. There's a goal he scored. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on YouTube. I think hadn't been here long, probably only about third or fourth home game, you know, after that ridiculous West Brom game, and he scores a header against Liverpool, and Liverpool are top. And again, he sort of powers this header from Bas Clements from the edge of the box. And I got my son to watch that yesterday. He was saying about, oh, Dad, how good was he? I said, watch this. And he said, Jesus, it was just like a volley. The header was like a volley, and he had to generate all the power as well. Just a fantastic all-round footballer. And I think, very much, you know, he spanned the 78 side and he spanned the 81 side, and arguably, okay, you know, you've got Walkie's goals, of course, but he was arguably the key player in those teams. He probably was.
And it's very much a sort of modern centre forward role, isn't it? When you see what teams want in a forward today, it's playing up front on your own, occupying two centre halves, being able to chip in with goals, being able to win your headers, run at the back,
dribble in.
What was
in today's game? He would be the centre forward.
I think Ben got it spot on again 5 years ago. So Drogba was probably in his pomp, or perhaps just coming to the end of his days at Chelsea. And I think Ben had it spot on. So he said, Dave, from what you've said, I'm getting Didier Drogba. And yeah, I mean, pretty much, you know, he was of that quality, you know, like we said, probably not as athletic as Drogba, because players, you know, I hold my hands up, players weren't back then, they weren't, but all the same attributes and probably a bit more.
Well, and now, Dave, when you ever mention all-round centre forwards, I think of Klinsmann, because, you know, he could jump 2 meters in the air. And now, of course, Harry Kane has taken that just to a totally different level, where he's a complete hybrid number 9, number 10. But no,
that's interesting. That's interesting you mentioned that, because Mariner could drop deep. Mariner could do that. Mariner could do what Kane could do. He's that good a player. He could drop deep and get the ball and draw defenders in and push away, and, you know, play balls out.
The oft-retweeted goal yesterday for England, where he does the pirouette on the edge of the box and the quick feet, and then smacks it in off the post. Joe, you know, well, we can eulogise about the player until the cows come home. We'll just get a little bit more from Dave in a minute, but about the bloke, we just must recount this story, because Dave and I went to Fulham. It must have been the first year of the pod. It was when Freddie Sears scored after about 10 seconds or
that evening game, absolutely hammering down with rain. I remember. We went and took our seats, and of course it's an away game in London, so everyone's standing anyway. And I did a double take, and so we're sat here, and probably one row in front, 5 seats to the left, Paul Mariner is stood just in with the Ipswich fans. And I said to Dave, and let's be honest, we know our mate Dave is a confident fellow who talk to anyone, who talk football to anyone. I said, Dave, don't look now. You know, one of those classics. Don't get caught looking. But I think Paul Mariner's just stood down there, and I've never seen Dave clam up. And what I will say,
on a cold February night.
Well, all I remember, because Dave then spent lots of time not watching the game and looking at Paul Mariner.
Fan worship is terrible.
What I do remember, I remember 2 things. One is, I don't know what chant we were doing then, but we were bouncing, and Paul Mariner was bouncing along with the jumping up and down with the fans. And then, of course, the stream of people, and Dave didn't go and get a photograph. He was too nervous, bless him. The stream of people that spotted him. And we were saying, Dave, weren't we? We were saying, oh, this must be an absolute nightmare for him. Poor bloke. He's come in here. He took a photo with every single one of them, shook all of their hands, and just right through, even while the game was going on, there were people coming up and taking pictures. Sorry, let me just ask Joe. You said you've met him. Have you just seemed a lovely bloke as well, Joe? Humble as well, not billionaire modern footballer.
No, and considering his career, sort of his later career as a TV pundit in America, he's obviously he's not someone that's just faded into the background and just done a few little corporate bits here and there. But I said one of the last times I didn't meet him there, but when we saw him was he came over for one of the Kevin Beattie Foundation events down at Clacton. He was there, and it just sort of somebody he at that point he'd come from America for a few days to do that event, and off his own back. I'm sure he wasn't paid to come over for that, and it's just like I say, just sort of a measure of the man that does that. And like I say, John Walk, I sit up in the Bobby Robson suite where John Walk is the host, and
Best mate,
when he comes over, and like I say, that those two are sort of thick as thieves there, and sort of delighted to see him over. And it's like I say, players like that are going to be really struggling with the dues at the moment, as I'm sure his family are as well. But no, he just seemed the life and soul of the party, the loudest man in the room, in whichever room he was in, but totally humble and totally self-effacing with it as well.
It's a really emotional tribute from his fellow presenters on ESPN. Bloody hell, I looked at that this morning. They're in tears. It's like Shaka Hislop, Frank LeBeouf, Craig Burley, and they're so emotional. As they said, it's not just, obviously the player. It was very much the man, and they said, he was absolutely the life and soul of the whole show. Yeah, that was really. I mean, these guys are These guys are absolutely. Shaka Hislop couldn't hold it together. It literally was breaking down. It's very, very sad. He made obviously such an impression over there, and obviously it was really close over there to obviously Stevie Nicol, who I think he first went as sort of like assistant coach, I think, and then they were joint managers, I think, of New England for a time. So yeah, they said they didn't. I didn't see any comment from him, but they said he'll just be broken up about it. Yeah.
There's also a good article on TWTD. Mel Henderson did a nice piece on there as well, which is worth having a read off if anyone has.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, Mel.
Dave, just really quickly, I know we've spoken about this for hours and hours on the pod and the 81 team, and you do build a team from the back, don't you? But you could build a team from reverse. Just quickly, just speak about his role, the synergy with Gates, Brazil, etc., Walk, and also just a little bit. You got about 2 minutes spanning the 78 and 81 teams.
I think spanning the 78. So Preseason. I don't think I've ever seen a good front two as Marin and Weimark. Never. I thought Weimark, I was very young, but Weimark and Johnson were good. And obviously Crawford and Phillips I never saw. But Marin and Weimark were just magnificent together. It was a real shame how that really didn't develop, because probably about 6 months after Mariner came, maybe a season, and Weimark got a bad knee injury, which basically obviously kept him out of the 78 side, and he never was quite the same player for Ipswich again. But and getting back to the 81 side, as Joe said quite early, he was massive. He could just get you up the pitch. If ever not that 81 side ever used to struggle that much, but if they were, latterly, I was thinking latterly in games, when they're really decimated by injuries, you could just get the ball up to Mariner up the pitch, and he was big and strong enough to just hold the ball up by the side some time and bring other players into play. Just a fulcrum. And obviously very important. Brazil came into that side as an 18, 19-year-old prolific scorer at youth level and in the reserves. And again, what a player to learn off, and what a player to play up alongside. And the same with Gates. Those three just gelled magnificently, and Mariner was really the fulcrum of it all, really. And hence, just look at his England career. I think he might still almost share that record of consecutive goals in England games. I think leading into and spanning, the 82 World Cup, during the 82 World Cup, I think he scored something like 6 or 7 consecutive England games. I think that might still be possibly a joint record. I'm not sure, but it certainly was for a time. So he had a great England career as well. Class, absolutely class player.
Brilliant stuff. So look, we've had some tweets and some questions. We'll put them in the third segment, but those are our memories. Dave, speaking 5 years ago, is on the YouTube channel in detail about the player, and of course, we went chapter and verse on the 81 season. We are reacting to the sad news yesterday. The great Paul Mariner died aged 68, and the Blue Monday podcast will be right back. Okay, onwards then, and it was pre-season friendly time. Joe was in attendance. It feels like we haven't stopped football for about 2 years now, but We had a funny chat, didn't we? Hang on a minute, we need to start the podcast again this week. So it was Dartford yesterday. But Joe, what I want to do first of all is just touch on the new signings, because we haven't really done the whole batch. We kind of reacted.
Should we also say another one of our member was there as well? Craig was there also, wasn't he?
Yes,
Craig was
yes,
there.
Craig, yeah. Craig in situ for us yesterday.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's just talk signings. Let me just do the outs first. You don't have to react to these. Dazelle, Ward, Judge, Sears, Wilson, Skews, Edwards, Chambers, Cornell, Wright, Drynan, Hawkins, Lancaster, Nydam, Milligan, Cleese, Everett, Sessions. There you go. There's always a dated office reference, isn't there? So look, wholesale clear out in, and I'll let you both do this. You go first, Joe. So Harper, Penny, Evans, Burns, Bon, and one we're going to have fun with, Hladky, the new keeper. Just give me a quick reaction. You don't have to go granular, Joe, but just on the 6 signings, the level, the speed of which they've been done, the deals, etc. What's your take? Harper, Penny, Evans, Burns, Bon, Hladky, which I should probably say about another 20 times to get into practice.
They all seem sort of to be of a good level, don't they? Sort of just to flick through them. Hladky, sort of speaking to people. I know I did my Football Manager research, but I spoke to the Salford researcher and the overall head of English Football League research, and they both
so niche. Joe Fair's chatting with the Salford football man. I love it.
Yeah, that this guy. He's a championship keeper. He's the best keeper outside the championship, and it's a brilliant signing. Like I say, he kept like 20 odd clean sheets last year, and that wasn't for a side that sat back. I think he had the highest save percentage in the league as well. So.
But didn't he also make the divisional team of the year?
PFA team of the year. I think he swept the honours at the Salford Player of the Season event as well. So he is a signing that has, I'd say he's maybe a bit of a late developer. I think he spent a number of years as number 2 at, I think it was Slovan Liberec, wasn't it, who he played in our UEFA Cup run.
Just quickly, Joe, you saw him yesterday in the flesh. Good presence, tall, big sort of presence. Obviously not holy like, but get my drift.
The problem was he didn't look tall, because I was only really watching them warm up, and it's just him and Holy there, so he's having to jump above Holy to claim balls, and he looks small, but he's obviously not small. But Holy is 6'9", isn't he? But he looked at decent presence, and I'd sort of stood right close down to the warm up they were doing with John Keeley, and Keeley was, and I don't know. I think all professional goalies are like it, but you just see the sort of hand speed, and when they get balls smashed at them from 6 yards out, and they hold these balls and know when they need to smash them away and hold them, and it's just, like I say, all professional keepers are the same, but you watch them in their warm-ups, and it's just like the standard is so high, isn't it?
Always refer to that in a Malcolm Webster, Richard Wright style. Spinning that ball back and half.
Malcolm Webster used to smash those volleys at him.
He those volleys at righty, didn't he?
But John Keeley was doing it yesterday, and it was just like, good shape. He was telling him when he was taking some catches, which I know something Dave appreciates, a good shape on a keeper.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Good footballer.
Does that apply? Does good players make good shapes apply to keepers?
Well, that's what the goalkeeper coach was saying.
Yeah, they do when they kick it, Ben. You have to make a good shape.
All I'm thinking of Matteo Sereni swiping in from the...
that's a lovely shape. That's perhaps my favourite goalkeeper shape, actually.
Because Richard Wright didn't make a good shape. His head used to kind of flip off to the left, but he had a hell of a kick on him. Anyway,
so he looks a top signing. Obviously, he didn't get tested at all yesterday, so there was nothing you could say about him yesterday. But then Lee Evans and Raheem Harper, sort of, if you talk about those two as a pairing, you can see what he wants in midfielders. It's that mobility, it's moving the ball quickly, it's sort of being just sort of sharp in the midfield, trying to pick up loose balls and just trying to get the ball out quickly to the wide players. And it was sort of obvious yesterday. Evans wore the captain's armband yesterday, and it wouldn't surprise if he ends up with that, because bearing in mind which sort of centre half we're able to get over the line. I say Harper, he's big as well. He's got to be 6'3", 6'4".
Oh, really?
Big presence as well. Another player that sort of on my FM research chat was said that he should definitely be in the championship. So
I've seen him several times in the flesh in the championship.
And the head researcher was actually a Birmingham fan, so has watched him closely there. So did that on that side. I'd say Evans has obviously played a lot in the Championship. I'd say he's more your sort of steady Eddie, just gets on the ball, gets it moving, is always available, moving about that way. And then Bon, not someone I've seen a huge amount of previously, but he's seemed to have sort of fallen into that gap of sort of good in League One, but not quite cutting it at the Championship level. Maybe not. Maybe that's because he didn't get the opportunities. We'll find out in time.
I would suggest that if I can come in on Bon as well. I had a lot of back and forth with QPR fans. Not exactly the same level of back and forth we had about Mark Ashton with the Bristol City fans. A little less salty about this, but very much a sense that, and you're going to talk to me about the team shape, that don't play him out wide in a 4-2-3-1. And that reminds me of something I heard Gary Lineker say when he was playing under Cruyff. He said there was a job for a striker who played the width for the penalty box, didn't move around very much, and Johan Cruyff kept playing me out on the wing. And I kind of thought that job in the middle might do for me. And I had a bit of a sense with Macaulay Bonne last year that standing next to Charlie Austin in the front two or Lyndon Dykes might have suited him. So you can talk to me about the team shape and everything in a little bit. Just quickly, Joe, and then we get Dave's reaction. Burns and Penny we need to speak about as well.
We've seen a fair amount of Burns for Fleetwood against us, and he's very, very fast, isn't he? I think he's a sort of Gwion Edwards replacement in that account, just pace on the wings and versatile, can play back at right back, right wing back, right wing, and maybe with the sort of still injury doubts over Kane Vincent Young, there's a element that maybe he might end up sort of playing in that right back role as well, because Vincent Young wasn't ESA. Penny seems to be probably the only one of the signings that you wouldn't look at and think he's a nailed-on starter. He looks like somebody who's filling the sort of backup left back role, and he'll get his opportunities. And if he takes them, I'm sure he'll stay in the team. But just looking at his pedigree and looking at the other players we're looking at, I know sort of Hayden Coulson from Middlesbrough, and there's another one, a Dundee left back linked on TWTD today. Or TWTD posted the story of the link. So I think we're still looking for a first choice left back with Penny to compete with them. But yeah, I think the business has been good. I think it's sort of when we were going back to pre-season and we only had the sort of 11, 12 players in, it did seem a bit of a concern. Again, that's probably still we then signed the sort of the bodies last week or the week before last, but again, it's gone a little bit quiet on there. And when you looked at the team on Saturday, you effectively, I spoke to Craig at the game, and it's sort of, you looked at the back four there, sort of Donatian, Enciala, Wolfenden, Penny, and you could quite easily see a situation where none of them are starting on the first day of the season. So we do probably need to try and get something. Well, I'm sure they are trying, but we do need to get some of these deals over the line quickly so that we give the guys a chance once we get to the last 2 or 3 pre-season friendlies.
David, before you come in, I just wanted to add in from what I saw of Wigan, Cook, to your point about Burns, wasn't afraid to move Cal Naismith, who was basically a left winger, back and use him at fullback. So I would agree with your assessment there. So Dave, just the broad question then on the incomings and the standard, and maybe a bit of a compare and contrast with the pools we've been fishing in previous seasons relative to where we are.
I think it's summary, Joe. You saying there that Penny's likely to be dropped, but no doubt we'll have that so much over the season. But yeah, I think I agree with Joe. It's seemingly a very good standard. I must admit I hadn't really followed much about Raheem Harper, but both my lads said, "Oh yeah, it'd be an absolute fantastic signing. You know, he's got a presence about him and he can play." And Craig made quite a funny comment. I think just before half time, he said, "Well, the first half's anything to go by. Raheem Harper will be my player of the season come May." So
stick it in an envelope, seal it now.
Locked in now. So yeah, you know, we got Evans and Burns in very early. Then there was a bit of a lull until we got. I mean, the Harper thing seemed to be obviously protracted until the geezer from Barnsley tipped up at West Brom. Then it was seemingly that happened immediately. I spoke to a Charlton fan on Friday, was it? Yeah, on Friday, and he really said he really liked Bon, and he said, yeah, crikey, he said he was sure at League One he'll do a job be able to do a job at League One. That's for certain. And again, like Joe said, I spoke to a QPR fan, and again, he had nothing but good to say about Bon, who's basically said that possibly a year away, League One, get some games, get some goals under his belt, and he could well cut it in the Championship. Just with a little bit more experience, and of course, he's a Chantry lad, which always helps, of course.
From one to another day.
Obviously, and the goalkeeper's obviously, got a good pedigree, and that's all good things about him. Again, you read things on the forum and bits and pieces of press about the goalkeeper, and they said, he could certainly cut it in the Championship. So there's another good sign. And so, as far as goalkeeper's concerned, I wasn't overly enamored with Holy, really, but if Holy's a number 2, then that's more than decent, isn't it?
I think
seemingly, again, from what the guys were saying yesterday, both Joe and Craig, the feedback we were getting is that you could see that perhaps Burns is very much, perhaps yesterday to begin with, in that Guion Edwards role, that he is quick and he will get you up. He will get you up the pitch, win fouls, etc. But again, seemingly a bit, on the face, it's so early, isn't it? And again, the caveat Craig put on it. Well, hang on, the caveat is that we are playing a National League side, for goodness sake. But it just perhaps looked a bit raw. But I'm okay with the signing so far. And as Joe quite rightly said, that back four could well be very, very different by the time we kick off, with Ashton openly coming out yesterday and saying that probably they're looking to get another 4 or 5 in before the season starts, and waiting and making the point that they're prepared to hang on and wait for these players.
That was the point that I was just trying to try and make, is that, and I know football fans are not very good at being patient, and we are football fans, and we include ourselves in this. But from studying transfer windows now, I've done a few. There seems to be like these hit points in the transfer window. We've gone past the first 2 now, which is contract expiry date, where all the good free agents kind of got sucked up. Then there's pre-season, and now there are still free agents, but these are the ones now that they were maybe waiting, and maybe clubs are waiting on them. There's 2 more hit points that we need to react to. One is the big deal and the cascade. And I know it sounds ridiculous because we're talking about Ipswich, which might be Jack Grealish or Harry Kane or Jadon Sancho or whoever, that then means that money goes into Southampton when Ings goes out, and then Armstrong goes from Blackburn to Southampton, and then Blackburn spend and then away you go. And then of course the last one is deadline day, and I dare say that we may sign somebody on deadline day. So look, if they're the right guys, and I agree with what both of you say, in terms of the back four may completely change, but if they're the right guys, we may have to suck it up and wait until, what will it be, first week of September? Yeah,
you just have to make sure that you don't sign the right guys at the wrong time, though, don't you? Because
agreed.
It has to be the right guys at the right time, and if that means you have to wait longer for certain players.
I don't think you'll get that from this guy, though, Ashton. I don't think you'll get like almost desperation signings. Look, we've been there before, and you're just not going to get that. What was interesting?
The Euro slows the market down, like it does. Major tournaments slow the market down as they do every year because the big players are distracted.
Agents
I know the Jadon Sancho deal's gone through. That's done.
The big deals are always slow, though, aren't they? And there's big holdouts, and if anyone's ever been involved in a housing chain, you know how that all works, don't you?
Danassian's an interesting one for me, because I always thought there was a player there in Danassian, and I always thought at that level he could do a pretty good job. And I don't know how Joe feels about that, but I wouldn't necessarily have a problem going into game one with Danassian at right back.
Well, I'd get rid of him. He wants to go, from all I hear. I think
really?
He wanted to go to Plymouth in January, I think. I don't think he's particularly happy here, but yesterday just illustrates what he is as a player, because he's, again, fine defensively, gets forward.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's that final ball, and like I say, I know it's the first pre-season friendly, but ultimately you're playing a National League South team, and
yeah.
They were just content to let him have the ball, if that makes sense. He was the one that they would let have the ball because they know he's not going to put a decent cross in effectively. So
okay.
I just wanted to chip in on Cook and modern 4-2-3-1, where fullbacks are honestly, they're kind of like the most important players in the team. We've seen the Klopp, and obviously we're not going to replicate that, but they're now expected to overload midfields and contribute assists and key passes, aren't they?
I mean, a lot will depend on Vincent Young. I mean, hopefully it's his shoulder, wasn't it? Hopefully it's just purely his shoulder is still settling down and mending. Hopefully it's just his shoulder and no other, lower body, muscular injury attached to his previous issue. So, if it's just his shoulder, maybe they are just nursing him back gently and he'll be fine. He'll be fine for day one.
I just find every year though, if somebody starts to miss a couple of pre-season games, then
it takes
there's always more. There's always more to it than whether it's a setback. And if he misses the next 2 pre-season games, you can almost guarantee he's not going to be starting on the first day of the season, can't you?
Yeah, there's an issue. Yeah.
So Joe, how did it play out then? A 1-0 win with a sort of young side in the second half. What did you learn? I know it's often just a bit of fitness for the chaps, particularly the first team guys. But what were your thoughts on what you actually saw?
I think it was more just getting back to the games, wasn't it? And actually, sort of more from a personal point of view, and sort of everyone I spoke to, just actually being at a live game, enjoying it. Lovely little setup down at Dartford. There, I was really, really impressed. Their stadium there, nice place to go. And I didn't do anything but just go to the ground and go there. But just the tempo just felt high. And considering it was the first pre-season friendly right at the start of the year, the game was the first half when we had the sort of main team on was played at a nice tempo. It was quick. It was busy. We dominated the ball in their half. They tried to catch on the break a couple of times, but we looked pretty comfortable. And it was, so you can see what he wants in his team. And it's those early balls out to the wide players. It's fullbacks and wingers sort of getting around each other, trying like you were just saying there, trying to have overloads with the fullbacks and getting to the byline and trying to get crosses in and pulling things back from there. I say game started quite brightly. Bon sort of within 2 minutes, Dobra sort of won the ball back on the edge of the box. Bon just takes a touch and just smashes it, and it hits the crossbar and flies out of the ground. It was sort of hit with such velocity there.
Did he play inside forward then, Bon?
Well, it was quite awkward because you had the obvious back four. You had Evans and Harper in front. You had Burns on the right, and then sort of Norwood, Bon, and Dobra. Those three sort of interchange quite a lot. So often it was Dobra out on the left with the sort of two in the middle. Then sort of Norwood would drop into the hole and Bon would push on. Then at times you saw Bon on the left. Norwood didn't go out there as much, but even at times he did as well. So it was like those three were rotating amongst themselves, but there wasn't. I don't know. It felt like we were a couple of sort of bodies short of what we wanted to do. How
did Norwood look?
To be honest, he didn't look that sharp. Like his touch was off and things like that. So it's not one you want to read too much into. But yeah, he was probably one of the bigger disappointments. But again, you're talking 45 minutes of the first pre-season game. He'd obviously missed stuff at the end of the season, so he'd been trying to get back fit and doing his own program. So it's not something I'm at all worried about yet. But it wasn't as sharp as he can be. But he's someone that he plays on the edge, doesn't he? And maybe he struggles to get himself up for friendly. So we'll see on that side. And then second half, it was only really Holy and Darba and El Mazzuni were the only three what you consider senior players there. The rest were effectively the under-18 squad as much as anything. So I don't know why they were there ahead of the 23s. There's talk of a COVID outbreak with the 23s, but whether that's just one case that caused the Bury game to be cancelled yesterday, and so they did something differently. But I think they're playing Bury on Tuesday night. I don't know if that's the first team or a 23s team, but we'll see a bit more there. But yeah, the young kids did well. They started, it was a bit of a shaky start, and they relied on Holy to make 2 or 3 good saves when he came in. But yeah, they did well. Sort of Cameron Humphreys on the left again looked really sharp. Chirera was easy for you today, isn't it? scored a good goal. Albie Armin, I liked the look of down the left, and I say it's just a decent little decent start.
And good to see Dobra sort of seemingly back in the first team fold.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of one. he was one of the ones I was very disappointed that looked like he was going to be on his way out. So whatever's happened, it's glad to see him back in there.
And any sort of further whispers that you've heard about, as it's called the bomb squad, any more likely of those players to step back up to the first team?
We've got in there. If you go through them one by one, you've got Brett McGavin. I don't really see there's any future for him. He's not the right midfielder. Yeah, Teddy Bishop. I think he's quite far down the line to leaving. I think it'll probably be MK Dons with him.
Lincoln
have been in, but I think it's going to be MK.
Yeah.
Caden Jackson. I don't see any way back for Jackson. He just doesn't really fit the way we want to play.
No.
And then Miles Kenlock, again, we've signed effectively his replacement in Matt Penny, and we're still looking at a left back, so he's going to be gone somewhere. But then it leaves you the interesting one, which is Flynn Downs. The talk of him wanting to leave last year, obviously handed in a transfer request, but it seemed like there was a lot of things that both he and the
new
club
manager at Palace now, Joe.
Yeah, both he and the club seem to do a lot wrong last summer, and it's hard to know exactly where the blame lies between it. But I don't think the club handled it well, and I don't think Downs handled it well either. So
new manager of Palace playing albeit a slightly different level, a similar role, I guess.
Yeah, but the club want 2 million for Downs, and I think we and that's what they want for him. And we only got offered about 1.6, I think it was, from Palace last season. And what has his value gone up or down since last season? I think it's impossible to say it went up after what happened last year. So, do we just end up in a situation where it gets towards the end of the window? And I think we're going to get towards the end of the window, and he's either going to be chucked out on loan somewhere with a loan fee, or he's going to have to be brought back in the fold. I'd love to see him brought back in the fold.
Actually, Joe's spot on. I mean, who would not want to be averse to seeing Downs back in there? Crikey, in that squad. Bloody hell, that makes it. Looking at the midfield now, that makes it pretty strong looking midfield, for goodness sake. So I for one hope he stays, but who knows, Jay? Has he been well advised? You just don't know. It always goes back to start of last season, doesn't it?
But there's no need to give it. There's no need to give him away, is there?
No, absolutely not. No, he's an asset, definite asset.
We don't move on to questions. Our wonderful listeners will not get their thoughts heard. So the Blue Monday podcast will return imminently with your questions. And here we are. Oh my God, we're back again, said the Backstreet Boys. You can follow the Blue Monday podcast on YouTube, where you can see our lovely faces. And when we do a live stream, you can comment, and you can even donate via Super Chat. You can also support on Acast in that way. I think the advert plays at the start of the podcast, telling you all about that. Twitter at Blue Monday ITFC. And we are on Instagram, where you can see some of the pictures that Joe and Craig took yesterday. Should we do some questions then, gentlemen? Who should we go with first? There's a few. I think you've already answered this, Dave, but can you just confirm your answer here? This is Mike at Mike Clacton. Who was Paul Mariner's best strike partner at ITFC?
Oh yeah, Trevor Wymark for that period, definitely. Yeah.
This is David. You can take this one as well, Dave. Paul scored Town's only goal on my first visit to Portman Road. When Town have won anything, our nines have been Crawford, Mariner, Kiwomya, and Stewart. Will our 21-22 number 9 take us to the title, Dave?
I'll tell you what, if whoever our number 9 is can emulate those four, I think we'll be happy, definitely. Looking at it.
This is Dansler Kubel. I don't want to read his although I really do now, but I'm not going to. With England fever gripping the nation, I explained to my 8-year-old, Joe, you can have this one, that Paul Mariner played up front for England in the 82 World Cup. So he was like Harry Kane, but played for Ipswich. Seems improbable now. Proper player, legend and hero. And we should mention, you can see David's decked out in his England regalia. It is 12:21 on the day of the Euro finals.
Homecoming.
If I can just steal Dansler Poubel's thunder, for you two, do you agree with me that it has been great fun watching a team you care about win big games and potentially able to do something magnificent tonight? And that I don't want to sound all surly about it, but hasn't it been great to sit there in a massive game against your huge rival, like against Germany, and you're the one scoring the 2 goals at the end of the game to win, Joe?
And you're right, I'm feeling quite confident about it as well. I don't know about you, but I felt quite confident right the way through.
Yeah, and it's such a likeable team, isn't it? I know that's been said a lot, but I've always, I know some people don't care a huge amount for international football, but I've always been a big supporter of the England team. I spent years traipsing around, well, the world, effectively following them, sort of in my youth, but now I'm not able to with a family. But it's just, I love watching England, and it's been a real difficult few years, sort of leading up to sort of the Southgate appointment, sort of where you just see the frustration and see that the players just aren't coming out of their shell, or they look timid, scared, like the jersey weighing heavy on them. But it seems that Gareth Southgate is just perfectly suited to that role of international management, and he seems to empower the players to speak out if they want to. Treat it, like I say, you go back, it's only 2010 where you've got Fabio Capello banning certain food from ketchup from sort of meals, and the players being put away in what they sort of describe as a sort of luxury prison camp. And now it just seems that there's so much trust in the players to do the right things, and they're repaying Southgate's trust. And I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of these players have been sort of from the younger age groups, and they've gone away like because we never seem to take these sort of youth World Cups and youth European Championships seriously. You'd go to a World Cup and you've had 60 players pull out because the clubs won't release them. But sort of there's people in this team that won the under-17 World Cup, the under-20 World Cup, the under-17s European Championship, the under-19s European Championship, and they've got used to going away representing England. This sort of Team England, all the sort of relationships that they've formed. There doesn't seem to be the club rivalries in there, which there has been previously. But no, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and don't want it to end.
It's going to end tonight, Dave.
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, one way or t'other. But yeah, I just think there's, the older players. There's good role models in the team, isn't it? Yeah, Harry Kane, Jordan Henderson, players like that. Just experienced players and really good role models right the way through. So yeah, it's yeah, we're not going to do any You're not going to make us do any predictions, are you? So
that would be grossly unfair.
I mean, again, I've seen it older than you, obviously older than you guys. I mean, Christ, I went through the 70s. I went went right through the 70s up to the early 80s without any tournament. There was none until it went from the World Cup 1970, the West Germany game, to Euros in 1980, and that was a disaster. Okay, ruined perhaps by our fans, that was at pretty much the height of sort of the sort of fan problem back then. Well, yeah, pretty much, 1980, before it was really perhaps brought under control, maybe latterly as a result of Heysel and one thing and another. But it was desperate times. You just think how far under Southgate the squad has come in 5 years. I mean, crikey, that Iceland game at the last Euros, you see the footage of that and the summary in the studio afterwards from like Ferdinand and Shearer and saying, this is English football at its lowest ever ebb, so. Yeah, Joe's right. We're now, got these players and seemingly, developing these players through from the under-17s, under-18s, where I think under previous managers, none of these players ever broke through. Just never, ever broke through. So, and you look at the overall strength of the squad and it's quite frightening, really, especially the forward players, really, from midfield and forward players, it's quite frightening. So, and hence I think, we've just been stronger in some of those games. I think even the Germany, who ever thought that, towards the end, I know we scored late in the Germany game, we were just much stronger. I mean, Ukraine, we blew away.
Dave,
and Denmark,
Dave,
we've just
Dave, Twitter was telling Southgate to bring Grealish on after about the 3rd minute. It's almost like Southgate understands international football better than club football fans do. Are you getting that impression?
I mean, what a big shout the other night! What a big shout! Quite a big personality, Grealish, and obviously very much the fans' favourite. Brings him on, takes him off, brings on Trippier, closes a game out. Genius, not genius, but
we'll try and get this podcast out before the game. But you may be listening to this and you may be drunk still tomorrow morning.
I hope so.
Yeah, of course. From the Blue Monday podcast, Let's do a Brian Clough quote, Dave, before the second European Cup final Forest won. Just win. Just win. No, nothing more, nothing less.
What did he say? Manny Council. We've got a little fat left winger. He'll tear him to pieces.
Have you heard the other one that I think Teddy Sheringham? Sorry, we've gone down the Cloughy rabbit hole. He puts a football on a towel and he goes, "There's the ball. Now go and win the game." Tremendous. Right. Anyway, again, I want to read these just in tribute to Paul Mariner. I think you've already answered it, Dave. Just quickly, which modern day player would Paul Mariner be alike nowadays?
Probably. Yeah, we spoke about Drogba then, and probably Kane. Probably would be maybe not quite so prolific, but yeah, probably as an all-round centre forward. Yeah.
This is our friend Jules. Paul Mariner, no words are good enough to give this legend justice. Feel very privileged to have watched nearly every game Paul Mariner played for Ipswich. That's brilliant, Jules.
Yeah.
Thanks to players like Paul, we wear the blue badge with pride. Once a blue, always a blue. P.S. It's coming home, Jules.
Don't.
I can split this in half. I was going to say, Joe, sorry, this one's going to have to go Dave's way again as well. This is FPL Tractor, who sends us a lot of questions. Thank you, FPL Tractor. Is there anyone who competes with Crawford and Mariner for the two forwards in our all-time 11? My dad says Tom Garney's is in the conversation.
Well, Tom Garney's even predates Crawford and Phillips, but I mean, obviously, Ben, the obvious one, you'd have the
David Johnson.
For someone of our age, Marcus Stewart would be the first one in. We didn't have the pleasure of seeing
back then. I suppose back in the day. Yeah. I mean, you'd Mark and Brazil, perhaps. Yeah.
But they're not getting past Crawford and Mariner.
No, they're not.
No.
Crawford just be sheer weight of goals, obviously. And he's my mate.
FPL Tractor, of course. Yeah, check out our brilliant interview with Ray Crawford. Joe, he adds, do you think Bonn and Norwood could both play in the proper games? Bonn wide left. And I will again give my feedback from my QPR friends that say no to Bonn wide.
I think it's just
they may be wrong. Sorry, Joe. They may be wrong. I'm just telling you what I'm being told.
It's just how fluid it becomes. If you're playing Bonn on the left and hopefully Bersant Selina as a number 10, for example, then Selina's going to naturally drift out that way and be the one that links up with the fullback. But you are going to need proper width for someone drifting out with the fullback.
Dave's visualising Tarab under Warnock in 2010 or something, isn't he? Now it's Selina.
My word.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye on that one. But sorry, Dave, I feel like I crashed your answer then. To summarise.
I think he can, but it's very dependent on who else is in that three behind the striker, how fluid they are in there. Because, like I say, if it's a Dobra or a Selina, then you can they will naturally drift out that way and allows you to get two strikers in the box, doesn't it? So we'll see.
I think currently out of all the players we've been linked with and we are linked with, I mean, let's put Selina to side because that's probably fantasy, isn't it?
Let's not, because I liked your face when the subject came up.
If we sign that Matt Crooks,
you like that, Dave?
Yeah,
we're talking about as soon as Cook came in, we were talking about the Nick Powell role of the physical.
I mean, there's talk now of Championship side sniffing round, but again, is that just
come on, Adrian?
Is that Adrian Rotherham talking that up? So, yeah, again, Joe seemingly be putting a second bid that was getting rebuffed. I mean, obviously, if that is true about the first bid, that was just a bit of a piss take, wasn't it? Probably, but
I think the problem we've got there is Paul Warne is such a. Let me choose my words carefully here. He's such a budgie, isn't he? He's such a Norwich fan that he is a proper scammer from our side of it and that side. And with
Can I just say, I've met Paul Warne twice.
I'm sure he's charming.
The second time he met me was 2 years removed. I was in a Rotherham Watford press conference, and he walked in and he went, "Hello, mate. You're the Ipswich fan, aren't you?"
Oh, here you go.
And he'd remembered from like a couple of years ago. So obviously, clanging name drop. But I really like Paul Warne for that reason.
I just mean that if we're obviously a big rival for Rotherham going up this year, and they're putting that to one side, there probably isn't a club that Paul Warne would rather
not sell to.
And you're right.
Sell to. Why would you sell to a big rival when you are? He is a proper, genuine Norwich fan who.
I know, yeah.
Like,
I mean, it'd be, I guess, equivalent.
Loves the club. He's not just I support Norwich. He is a proper Norwich fan. So he
identifies as a Norwich fan.
Yeah, I mean, that's equivalent as like Dazelle going. All right, very much. He's a very much Marmite in Marmite Dazelle for Ipswich. I think I like, or you didn't, but I think that. I was pleased that he didn't go somewhere like a Portsmouth or somewhere like that. At least he's gone to QPR. They're not in our division. So, I mean, I personally think if we can get him, he would be a massive signing for us.
Can we go into hyperspeed mode because we're running short? We need to get Joe your take on Gibbs to Norwich. Can you do that in 30 seconds, Joe?
Oh, it just seems it seems very careless from the club, and I don't know. I think it's just something that's fallen down the priority list of things to do with so much going on, and I don't know. It's a silly decision when you hear. Sort of the journos, EADT, TWTD seem to think it's over a couple of £100 a week that they made an offer back at the back end of last year. It sort of just sat there on the table, it not being acceptable, and then they picked it up on the last day of his contract and re-offered him the same terms. And I think the damage has been done there, but it's a real shame to, like I say, to lose a player of that calibre.
It's not a done deal with Norwich just yet, is it?
It's not. I wonder if at some point we go back in and try and sort it out, but I don't know. It seems highly unlikely.
I know you really like him.
Yeah.
And obviously, anyone's entitled to their opinion, but mine would be don't pile in on the player. It is what it is.
He's a kid,
and he'll have advisors and agents and.
But he's from a family of big Ipswich fans as well. Like it just seems like how we've let it go. But like I said, there's obviously been a huge amount going on at the club, and I just think it's something that's just slipped off the priority list.
Just quickly, Joe, I want to ask you, just your opinion on Lancaster going, because again, talking about coming from an Ipswich family, bloody hell, they're staunch, aren't they?
Yeah, again, I think it's a shame. I think there would be a role for him as an option as one of those three, because I think he can play across those three in any one. But I don't know, it just seems like probably a little bit over the top. But where do you draw the line though? But I think he's one I'd have tried to keep around just because I think he's so versatile, and I say you giving him away. But I think Cambridge is a good move for him. He can go and play with sort of Wes Hoolahan over there.
Small moments, isn't it? Small moments. Remember the game last season, chance he had against Sunderland, he snatched, put it over. He scores that. Who knows? He's
And like last year, he seemed to play as sort of one of the midfield three, didn't he? A lot in the Lambert, sort of played as an 8 there rather than sort of in one of those wide roles. So
what are you holding, Joe?
I'm a bingo dabber from the Wild Duck Holiday Park.
I should do that when you say dabber, or I shouldn't because someone will clip it. Right, two more real quick, guys, and we'll get these out. Dave Mullet, can we even tell how ambitious and realistic the new ITFC being in the transfer market until the window closes? Let me parlay that into. Do you think we'll get some more exciting signings, more so than the likes of Bono Harper already?
Well, I mean, the one we just spoke about, if that comes to fruition, then certainly, yeah. I mean, I think he's certainly Mr. Ashton is certainly ambitious. So, I would think so. Yeah,
I had a friend over the other night. It's nothing to do with me. One of my missus' friends, Dave. You like this? He's one of the groundsmen at Leicester. And if you had any idea how much Leicester spend on their Charlton fan, very disrespectful about Macaulay Bonne actually. So I hope we can stick two fingers up to my mate Chris.
My Charlton fan on Friday was quite complimentary. So
yeah, I thought it was good for Charlton. There we go. Last one, Joe, from our friend Tim down south. Sad day yesterday, understood. Are you happy with the striking options at present, Joe?
Well, we need one more because you need to have. You can't go into a season with two strikers. So you need three up there, don't you? So, and from what, like I say, we're talking about Selena there. I know these guys. They want to make a couple of marquee signings. So, if we could get someone big, I've been
target man.
I've been thinking about as to who a marquee signing could be for a League One team, and I just
by the way, Mullet did have on his other part of the question was Jeff Cott of Plymouth.
I know it sounds a bit out there, but I think Connor Wickham would be a unbelievable signing. And when you look, who is a signing that's going to sort of get people excited?
Is he a free? Where is he?
He's a free agent. Yeah, he's left Crystal Palace. He's a free agent.
Wow.
I think that could be one.
Ruminate on that one, ladies and gentlemen.
He's probably only still about 22, isn't he?
What do you mean, about 26 maybe?
But he's like not far past mid-20s. He can't be.
Yeah. You've had that moment when you realise Raheem Sterling's like 26 or something.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Anyway, thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Dave, for being with us. Obviously, our abiding football message today is good luck to England, and may the best team win, and hopefully that team will be England. And of course, we dedicate this show to the memory of the great Paul Mariner, and we would love your comments and your Paul Mariner memories. Obviously, the podcast is now kicking back into gear. Please go and subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter as well, Acast, iTunes, and not iTunes anymore, Apple Podcasts. So wherever you get your pods, you'll find it down there. We are, like Mark Ashton, in talks amongst ourselves. We're trying to figure out the exact schedule of what shows we want to bring you in our 7th season. So that will hopefully crystallise in the next couple of weeks. And we are very, very much looking forward to spending what we hope will be a successful season. We've thought this before with all of you guys. So as ever, thank you, each and every one of you who have listened over the last 7 years, and hopefully 6 years. The 7th will be a good, fun one. Say goodbye, Joe.
Goodbye.
Say it's coming home, Dave. No, don't say goodbye.
Yeah, bye. Yeah, cheers.
And once again, that show was dedicated to the memory of the great Paul Mariner, who died yesterday, aged 68. Thank you, everybody, for listening.